He mopped floors that others walked over. He fixed lights no one noticed. He greeted people who never answered back. To most, Ardenvale was invisible. The janitor, the man with worn shoes, quiet eyes, and a name tag no one bothered to read. But one afternoon, when the CEO's little girl screamed, "Mom's dying," the entire building froze, and the man everyone mocked stepped forward and became someone no one would ever forget. The setup: Ardenvale worked at Linsworth Corporate Tower, one of the most prestigious firms in the city. The kind of place where people wore ambition like armor, and kindness was often mistaken for weakness. He arrived before sunrise every morning, pushing his mop and bucket through endless glass corridors. The floor gleamed under his care, but no one ever thanked him. "Hey, janitor," someone would call. "Missed a spot," another would joke, dropping crumbs on purpose. Arden would only smile faintly. "Yes, sir," then quietly clean it up. He never raised his voice, never complained. He just worked. But if anyone had taken a closer look, they'd have seen something different behind those calm eyes. Discipline, precision, and a quiet strength that didn't come from a bucket and broom. Because once, long ago, Ardenvale wasn't a janitor at all. He was Captain Ardenvale, a decorated field medic who'd saved dozens of lives during disaster relief missions overseas. But when tragedy struck, when he lost his wife in a flood and left the service to care for his newborn daughter, he vanished from the world that once saluted him. Now, years later, he worked quietly where no one knew his past. The CEO's world. The company was ruled by Elaine Drayton, a woman as sharp as glass and twice as unbreakable. She was brilliant, fierce, and known for never missing a meeting, a deal, or a deadline. But beneath that armor of perfection, she carried a secret illness. One she hid from everyone, including her only daughter, Clara. Clara was 6 years old, bright-eyed, curious, always running through the lobby after school to find her mom. And Arden was the only one who ever knelt to her level and smiled. "Hey, sunshine," he'd say. "Careful, those steps are slippery." She'd grin. "You always call me sunshine." He'd nod. "Because that's what you bring wherever you go." Sometimes she'd draw little doodles for him. Flowers, stars, hearts. She'd tape them to his janitor cart, calling it Mr. Arden's magic machine. No one else noticed. But for Arden, those little drawings meant everything. The mockery. One Monday morning, the company hosted an event for investors. The building gleamed, guests filled the lobby, and tension buzzed through the air. Arden, as always, worked quietly in the background, polishing the marble near the entrance. That's when Trent, a junior executive with too much pride and too little empathy, smirked at him. "Hey, old man," he said loudly, drawing laughter from a few co-workers. "You planning to mop during the photo session too? Might ruin the aesthetic." Arden straightened slowly, met his gaze and replied calmly, "Just doing my part to keep the place shining." Trent sneered. "Yeah? Maybe if you'd studied harder, you wouldn't be shining floors for a living." The group chuckled. Arden only smiled faintly and continued working. But Clara, sitting nearby waiting for her mother, frowned. "That's mean," she said softly. Trent shrugged. "It's the truth, kid." Arden turned to Clara, his eyes warm. "It's okay, sunshine. Some people see the floor cleaner, but not the reflection." Clara tilted her head. "What does that mean?" He smiled. "It means sometimes, when people look down on you, they forget they're seeing their own reflection." Even Trent had no words for that. The moment. Later that day, the event began. Laughter, cameras, speeches. Elaine Drayton, flawless in her black suit, took the stage to welcome the guests. Clara watched proudly from the front row, swinging her little legs, beaming at her mom. But midway through her speech, Elaine's voice wavered. Her hand trembled, her breath caught, and then she collapsed. The microphone hit the floor with a piercing crack. Gasps filled the room. People stood, frozen. No one moved. Clara's scream broke through the silence. "Mom's dying. Somebody help, please." The crowd erupted in panic. Some rushed forward, some called for help, but no one knew what to do. Then, a calm, steady voice cut through the chaos. Everyone moved back. Heads turned. It was the janitor. Arden Vale dropped his mop, pushed through the crowd, and knelt beside Elaine's still body. The transformation. He moved with precision, checking her pulse, tilting her head, loosening her collar. "Call emergency response," he ordered. "Tell them we have an adult female, mid-40s, unconscious, shallow breathing." The crowd hesitated. "Now!" he barked, his voice firm, commanding. Someone obeyed. Phones dialed. He turned to a trembling Clara. "Sunshine, it's okay. I'm here. I've got your mom." Then, with practiced calm, he began chest compressions. "Come on, Elaine," he murmured under his breath. "Breathe for your girl." Every push was steady, every motion exact. The man who'd been mocked for mopping floors now commanded the room with authority. People whispered, "Who is he? What's he doing?" Within seconds, color began to return to Elaine's face. Arden leaned close, listening. Faint breath. "She's coming back," he said quietly. Clara sobbed, clutching his arm. "You saved her. You saved my mommy." He smiled gently, still focused. "Not yet, Sunshine, but she's fighting, just like her daughter." After the ambulance, when the paramedics arrived, they found Arden already briefing them, calm, precise, professional. One of them blinked in recognition. "Wait, Captain Vale." Arden only nodded. "Just doing my job." Clara refused to let go of his sleeve until they lifted her mother onto the stretcher. And as the ambulance doors closed, she turned to him, tears streaking her cheeks. "You're my hero," she whispered. Arden smiled softly. "No, Sunshine. Your mom's the hero. She's coming back to you." The aftermath. By evening, the entire company knew what had happened. The janitor had saved the CEO's life. And suddenly, those who mocked him were silent. The same people who had laughed now stood in shame. Trent approached him the next day, eyes down. "Mr. Vale, I'm sorry for what I said." Arden simply nodded. "Apology accepted." Then he smiled faintly. "Next time you see someone working quietly, remember, they might have a story you can't see." Trent swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." The visit. A few days later, Arden received a message. "Elaine Drayton wants to see you." He walked into her hospital room hesitantly. Elaine was pale but smiling. Beside her sat Clara, coloring a picture, a stick figure of Arden with a mop in one hand and a heart in the other. Elaine looked up. "You saved my life," she said quietly. Arden shook his head. "I just did what I could." "No," she replied firmly. "You did what no one else could." Clara beamed. "I told everyone. You're not just a janitor. You're a hero." Arden chuckled softly. "Heroes are just people who do the right thing when no one else will." Elaine's eyes glistened. "You'll never be invisible in this company again, Mr. Vale." Whispers of change. The world inside the company had shifted. Where people once looked through Arden Vale, they now looked at him. Some greeted him with forced smiles, others with shame. But Arden, unchanged, arrived at dawn as always, polishing, sweeping, humming quietly under his breath. To him, kindness wasn't a show. It was a habit. And habits didn't disappear because people suddenly noticed. That morning, a soft voice called out, "Mr. Arden." It was Clara, skipping through the lobby with a drawing in her hands. She ran to him, beaming. "This is for you." It was a crayon picture of him holding her mom's hand. Bright colors, a sunshine above their heads. At the bottom, in shaky letters, "My hero janitor." Arden's eyes softened. "Thank you, Sunshine. I'll keep this forever." What neither of them noticed was Elaine Drayton standing at the mezzanine above, watching quietly. The woman whose life he'd saved, the woman who now saw her company, and herself differently. A new beginning. Later that week, Arden was summoned to the executive floor, a place he usually entered only to fix lights or empty bins. Elaine waited behind her desk, sunlight spilling across the glass walls. "Mr. Vale," she began, "I owe you more than thanks. You saved me, and you comforted my daughter." That isn't something I can repay with words. Arden shook his head. Ma'am, you don't owe me anything. But she smiled knowingly. Then humor me. She slid an envelope across the desk. Inside, a promotion letter. Facilities manager, effective immediately. Arden stared. Ma'am, I don't need a title. I'm fine where I am. I know, Elaine said gently. That's exactly why you deserve it. She leaned forward. Your service record came across my desk. Captain Vale, field medic, disaster response leader. Why hide that? Arden looked down. Because people see what they want to see. And I wanted peace, not applause. For a moment, silence. Then Elaine nodded, understanding. Then let me give you peace and purpose. Help me rebuild this company into one that values people, not positions. He hesitated, then smiled faintly. All right, ma'am. I'll do what I can. Acts of quiet kindness. From that day on, things began to change. Not loudly, not instantly, but gently, like spring creeping into winter. Employees noticed small miracles. One morning, the overworked receptionist found a new ergonomic chair with a note. For the backbone of the company. No signature, but everyone knew who'd done it. Another day, a delivery driver arrived soaked from rain. When he reached the lobby, there was a towel, a thermos of hot tea, and a small sign. Kindness served here. Arden's idea, of course. He started organizing after-hours cleanup teams. But instead of ordering people, he worked beside them, sleeves rolled up, humming softly. At first, a few volunteers joined out of guilt. Then more came out of admiration. Soon, what had been a place of competition began to feel, for the first time, like a community. Jealous eyes. But not everyone welcomed the change. Trent, the same executive who had once mocked him, struggled with guilt that slowly turned into envy. He couldn't stand the whispers of praise. Mr. Vale this, Mr. Vale that, he muttered to his colleagues. He's still a janitor playing hero. The bitterness grew, feeding on his insecurity. And when Elaine announced a new employee kindness initiative, naming Arden as program lead, Trent finally snapped. The confrontation. One evening, after most had gone home, Arden was checking supply logs in the maintenance room when Trent stormed in. Tell me something, Trent hissed. What's your game? You save one person and suddenly you're running the place. Arden looked up calmly. No game, just work. Trent laughed bitterly. You think you're better than us? Arden set down his pen. No, I think we can be better than this. Don't preach to me, Trent shot back. You clean floors. Arden's voice stayed gentle. Yes, and I see a lot of dirt come off when people finally stop pretending they're spotless. Trent froze, stung, furious, ashamed. He left without another word. Later, when Arden locked up for the night, he whispered to himself, everyone fights a battle no one sees. Maybe one day he'll understand. The CEO's daughter. Meanwhile, Clara had grown even closer to him. Whenever Elaine worked late, Clara would sit by Arden's cart, listening to his stories about stars, rivers, and how kindness ripples farther than you think. Did you ever save other people before my mom? She asked one night. Arden smiled. A few. How many? He looked thoughtful. Enough to learn that saving one person is never small. Because to someone, that person is their whole world. Clara tilted her head. So when you saved Mommy, you saved my world? He nodded softly. Exactly. She grinned. Then you're my superhero janitor forever. He chuckled. I'll take that title proudly. A second chance. Weeks passed, and the company thrived under its new spirit. Elaine returned to work healthier, lighter, more human. She often joined Arden during building rounds, asking his opinion about breakroom setups or community events. One evening, as they stood watching the sunset from the top floor, she said quietly, I used to think success meant power. Now I think it means peace. Arden nodded. Peace is rarer than power. She smiled. And you helped me find it. He looked away modestly. You already had it. You just needed a reminder. The fire alarm. Then came the day that tested everything. It was a quiet Friday afternoon when the fire alarms blared, smoke curling from the kitchen area on the 14th floor. Panic erupted. People rushed for the exits. Arden grabbed the extinguisher and sprinted toward the smoke. "Stay calm. Follow the evacuation plan," he called, guiding employees down the stairwell. Inside the break room, flames licked the curtains. The sprinklers sputtered. And near the counter, Trent was frozen, coughing, trying to pull a colleague away from the spreading fire. Without hesitation, Arden charged in, wrapped his jacket around the woman, and ushered her out. Then he turned back for Trent. "Go!" Trent shouted. "It's too much." Arden shook his head. "Not leaving you." With steady aim, he doused the flames until the extinguisher hissed empty. The fire subsided, smoke clearing. Only then did he cough, wipe the soot from his face, and smile faintly. "Next time you yell sooner." Trent, shaken, whispered, "You could have left me." Arden replied quietly, "Leaving people isn't who I am." Something in Trent broke, pride, fear, maybe both. He nodded, eyes wet. "I'm sorry, Captain Vale." Arden's smile was tired but kind. "Just Arden. We all start over someday." Healing hearts. When the building was declared safe, Elaine found him sitting on the curb outside, Clara asleep against his shoulder, soot on both of them. "You never stop saving people, do you?" she said softly. He smiled. "Habit, ma'am." She laughed through tears. "You've changed this place more than any policy ever could." Arden looked down at the sleeping child. Sometimes all it takes is one cry for help, and a few people willing to listen.